I've never understood how people in stupid America can feel good about this country and some of the things that this country does. And one of the things that really bothers me above all else is the amount of money that we distribute in foreign aid every year to countries all across the globe. Now, help me understand something here. We, at some point in time, became the self anointed police of the world and the self anointed kind of nanny state of the world, and that it became our responsibility to care for others. It became our responsibility to fund other countries and other armies and other economies. Well, excuse the fuck out of me, but I have a little bit of a problem with that. How can we sit there and feel that we are the greatest country in the world and that we are the ultimate morality police and we are higher and mightier than every other country in the world when we don't even sit there and take care of our own? How can we sit there and look at ourselves in the mirror as a society, as a country, and feel good about the fact that we give billions upon billions of dollars to militaries and economies all throughout the world, all the while we have millions of people upon millions of people in this country living in poverty? We have upwards of 1 million people that are actually homeless in this country. At some point in time, you have to look yourself in the mirror and ask, does that really make sense? At some point in time, you would think you would have to stop and smell the roses and say, hey, why are we taking money from poor people here to give it to rich people in poor countries so that way they can kill and slaughter and oppress others? Where is the logic in this? Where is the sense in this? Where is the sense in a country that continues to have an escalating national debt literally by the second that is in the $17 trillion range? Where does it make sense for us to continue to borrow more money that we don't have, that we can't afford to pay back, hence in part our astronomical amount of national debt, to bury ourselves and put us even more in debt as a country, make us even more slaves to our own debt? So that way we can help out other countries that it's not our responsibility to help to begin with. How does that make any sense? To borrow money and put ourselves even more in debt to help out other countries so that way we don't get any ultimate return on that investment, at least as a society, as the American people go as a whole. It doesn't make any sense, does it? This is absolutely astounding to me that this stupidity has been able to carry on for so many years. The first question I have is, where does it say anything in the Constitution about foreign aid being legal? Where does it suggest that the government can sit there and borrow money or tax us as taxpayers with the ultimate expense of paying for it by taking and borrowing money that we can't afford to borrow, that we will never be able to pay back, to bury us and mire us even more in a cycle of debt? So that way we could take that money from poor people here and from the people as a whole here and give it again to rich people in poor countries. When you look at the top countries that we provide economic and military support to from a foreign aid standpoint, you've got Afghanistan and Iraq right near the top of the list. Well, we know why that's going on because of our involvements in those entanglements in those quagmires of countries for many years now. You look at Israel. You look at all these other Middle Eastern countries like Pakistan and Jordan and so on and so forth. Why are we sitting there and borrowing ourselves and allowing ourselves to be borrowed even more into debt in an unconstitutional fashion in order to fund these other countries and these other governments, some of which aren't all that particularly pro-United States? It comes down, of course, to things like oil and protecting the U.S.'s interest in oil. It comes down to continuing the growth and the support of the industrial military complex. President Eisenhower, before he left office, tried to warn about this, tried to let the American people know, somebody that would know about the industrial military complex because he was a part of it for so many years. He tried to warn us this would happen. And all that's happening is we are becoming even more victims of this industrial military complex. All we are doing is continuing to become slaves to our debt. In no way, shape, or form can you justify to me from a constitutional standpoint that it is in any way legal or allowed or constitutional to sit there and either take our money as taxpayers or to sit there and borrow money and add to the national debt, taxing us down the road, because spending is a tax as well, to sit there and fund rich people in poor countries, to all the while support the industrial military complex, to allow the big oil conglomerates in the world to gain increasing control of more and more of the oil supply, not for the betterment of man, but for the betterment of themselves, so that way they can price gouge, that way they can artificially control the markets in terms of supply, as a result demand, and therefore make windfall profit. Oh, that's what's been happening over the past many years and decades, isn't it? We have upwards of 1 million people, if not more, in this country that are homeless. Not to mention all the vets that come back from these ridiculous foreign wars like Afghanistan and Iraq, that sit there and can't get into the VA to be seen. They can't get the necessary medical support that they need. They can't get the proper psychiatric help that they need. They can't get the long-term physical rehabilitation and care providing that they need, that they earned, that they deserve. We can't provide health care for every single American in this country. We can't do so many things. We've got an infrastructure of roads that is crumbling. We have an electrical grid that is severely and drastically out of date. We have so many things that are wrong in this country. And we have so many things that need to be fixed in this country, along with so many millions of people living in a cycle of poverty. Over 1 million people, and definitely probably I think even more than that, being homeless in this country. And all the while, we took $50 billion in fiscal year 2013 and gave it to other countries. When we have a budget deficit of over $1 trillion every year, we have a national debt in the 17 trillion with the T trillion dollar range, and we're sitting there and borrowing this money, taxing the American taxpayer even more. We are borrowing this money, making us slaves as citizens to this debt even more, allowing us to be further dependent upon this government, further dependent on the industrial military complex, all to serve their benefits and purposes and make us worse off as a nation. I think it is high time that stupid America wisen up on this. I think it is high time that we sit there and put an end to this madness, that we put a stop to this madness. I think it is high time that we sit there and cut off any and all foreign aid. Imagine what the United States could do with $50 billion right now. Just imagine the possibilities. If we are going to sit there and, hey, borrow that $50 billion that we don't have right now and punt that ball down the road, then by God, couldn't we at least take care of the 1 million plus homeless people in this country? Couldn't we do more to find cures for things like HIV and cancers? Couldn't we do more to take care of our veterans that fought these ridiculous unconstitutional wars in Afghanistan and Iraq? Couldn't we do more for our own people? What does it say for us as a society? What does it say for us as a country when we sit there and go tell everybody else how star-spangled awesome we are and that we're the greatest country in the fucking world, and all the while we don't even take care of our own first? I would always think that you take care of your home, and then if you have anything left over, then you can give. And I'm fine with that. But we're down the road to bankruptcy as a country. We are down the road to even more and more every single second, every single minute, every single hour, every single day, every single week, every single month, every single year, of becoming more and more slaves to the debt that has been created by our politicians and by the industrial military complex, all in the name of protecting their interest, all in the name of not your security, not national security, but their financial security and their political security, making sure that they have favorable governments in place where they feel strategically they need them, making sure that they can continue to increase the control over the international oil supply. That way they can artificially, control the supply, artificially increase the demand, and as a result, artificially send the prices of crude oil and, as a consequence, gasoline at the pump through the fucking roof. $50 fucking billion in fiscal year 2013 to other countries. $50 billion that we don't have, that we can't afford. And that all the while, if we were at least going to do this, the lesser of two evils, if we were going to borrow ourselves into a bigger hole, then at least let's do some good with that money. Not funding Afghanistan's government and military, not sitting there and funding Iraq's government and military, not funding Israel and their fucking government and military. God knows that's the last thing we need to be doing. Let's take that money and reinvest it here in America. Let's reinvest it in the American people. I guarantee you it'll lead to a safer, more secure America than the current policies that we have. And it'll be a much better country and a much better place for one and all. Stupid America, wake up. Stop supporting these policies. Stop signing off on unconstitutional foreign aid. Stop signing off on your politicians, your government, and the industrial military complex further borrowing us into a hole that we'll never be able to escape out of. Stop allowing them to make us slaves to the debt of ours that they created for us. It's time for us to stop the foreign aid and start feeding our own fucking people.